Please welcome to the stage the President and CEO of the Charlotte Regional Business Alliance, Janet Labar.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, y'all. It is my sincere honor to welcome you to the 2022 Charlotte Regional Business Alliance Annual Outlook. Today, we are so excited to celebrate the success of last year, look ahead to the future with some of the Charlotte region's top industry executives, and recognize a very special leader among us. At your seat, oh yes, thank you, Mayor. At your seats, you'll find a program with more information about today's signature event, but I do want to take a moment to thank the sponsors who helped make today's event possible. Our Citizen of the Carolinas Award sponsor, Duke Energy, our program sponsor, CBI Workplace Solutions, our gold sponsors, Amazon, Moore & Van Allen, Truliant Federal Credit Union, our silver sponsor, the Charlotte Hornets, and of course, our Chairman's Circle investors, Atrium Health, Bank of America, Centene, Duke Energy, Lowe's, Novant Health, and Truist. Let's give them a round of applause. I also want to take a quick moment to recognize our elected officials in the room. Thank you so much for all of you, what you do. You put so much time and energy into making our community better. And I also want to say hello to our past chairs of the Charlotte Chamber of Commerce and the Charlotte Regional Partnership. I know you're out there, so thank you again for your past leadership. But before we begin, we have something extra special planned. And I'm so excited to bring my friends up to the stage. Please join me, give a warm round of applause to Matt Olin and Tim Miner from Charlotte is Creative. Come on up.
Well, that was quite the intro.
Thank you, Janet. We appreciate that. I'm Matt Olin. This is Tim Miner.
Hello.
We are from Charlotte is Creative, and we're a nonprofit that sparks surprising and engaging connections between Charlotte's artists, creative entrepreneurs, and the business community. We love when we bring together the creative sector and the business sector here in Charlotte for mutual benefit, for mutual gain. And we've been up to this for 7 years now. It takes many different shapes and forms of our community-facing programs. We have Creative Mornings Charlotte. I don't know if anyone here has ever been to a Creative Mornings before, but we welcome you to come join us there.
I heard a few woos.
Two or three.
Woos.
Okay, good. Queen City Quiz Show. We have our Hug Microgrant program. The Biscuit is our media channel. We do lots of creative community engagement and program management, and we do lots of convening and advocacy in the community as well. And thanks to our friends at Wells Fargo, we also have the Creative Entrepreneurs Initiative, where we're training artists how to treat their craft like a business, like an entrepreneur, so they can live and earn a sustainable living here. But the way that we sustain ourselves as a nonprofit is by partnering with businesses like the ones that are in this room today. Because when you work with Charlotte is Creative, you unlock access to Charlotte's entire creative community. So we bring artists in to help with employee engagement programs, community conversations and events, neighborhood pop-ups, activating creativity throughout your headquarters, and we've done that with tons of organizations and companies in Charlotte. So we love it. I mean, it's a real calling for us.
You did a good job with that.
Thank you. I've been working on that. I appreciate it.
I don't get to talk here because I go off book, but that's good.
That's right.
Good job.
So why are we up here? Okay, so here's why we're up here. One of our signature series is Creative Mornings Charlotte. And there's a reason that Creative Mornings has sold out for 7 years in a row, every month for 7 years. And it's because it's infused with joy and fun. And one thing that we tried about 5 years ago was singing our gratitude to our sponsors. We thought it's boring, it's not creative to just list our sponsors off. We got to sing to them.
And we thought we would do it for 3 months max.
So here we are 5 years later, and we're still doing it. It's sort of become a tradition. So the Alliance asked us to come to the Leadership Retreat in Wilmington to sort of celebrate. I hear a clap out there. Okay, one fan.
All right, we got
Appreciate that. To celebrate 139 years of accomplishments in history of the Alliance, and this is the strangest encore ever. We're back to do it here.
Yeah, well, it's 139 years. That's an odd number. So now they have an odd musical act.
Very
if you want
odd
to see
opening, yes.
Sting or U2, that's the 140th year. That's an even number.
Exactly. So we're here to help kick off the event on the right note and maybe a few wrong notes. So
probably more than a few wrong notes.
Maybe a few more.
Enthusiasm, love of Charlotte, complete lack of self-awareness. These are our musical instruments
That's right.
we bring to you
Our
today.
finely tuned instruments. Okay, so let's do this thing.
I'm ready. Clap along if you wish.
Last 2 years we got a lot to flex. Billions in investments, jobs and projects. Broadband funding, non-discrimination plan. But it's cool to stop and think of where it all began.
The Charlotte Chamber.
It was 1883 when the Charlotte Chamber was birthed.
We're the Chamber.
Pretty soon 300 textile mills filled our universe.
The Charlotte Chamber.
Then the Southern Power Company made some energy to disperse.
They became Duke Power.
That was just 1904. No one knew where we would traverse. 139 years since. Infrastructure, advocacy, and recruitment. Plus a partnership with regional acclaim. Now today we got a real catchy name. Oh yeah.
We're the Alliance.
Got behind the good road movement, a setting our streets ablaze.
With years of progress.
Norfolk Southern and Inner railways.
Collaboration.
State roads, mountain road projects, Douglas Airport strikes a chord.
Now the Alliance.
2 million in development, hell yeah! All aboard! Got a big Ford Motor Plant. Hotel Charlotte, a General Tire, Electrolux, Freightliner, AXA, Equitable, Siemens, Starlit Energy Hub, Albemarle, I like the sound of that. GMC, which became Ally, and we got Steel there because
We're the Alliance.
City Auditorium was built so music fans could scream.
Regional Reliance.
Construction of Oak Green.
Helping with
The
compliance.
city of limits to a sit for a queen.
It's the Alliance.
Congratulations from the U.S. Chamber, baby. What a scene.
We're the
Let the
Alliance.
history books show that our bond kung fu is strong.
We did it together.
Lots of hospitals and schools, the roads to it. Oh yeah, it's on.
Ain't pseudoscience.
So long.
It's the
But
Alliance.
this recruitment is what we've excelled at all along. Let me tell you. Groninger, Husqvarna, Toshiba, American Energy System, and an incorporated all-state test. GD Todd, you sent him
It's the Alliance.
Come on, all the city and town and schools.
Toast the
Quality
Alliance.
education, so we don't raise no fools.
Collaboration.
Four-year status for Charlotte College, nice rule.
It's the Alliance.
Research Park and University City SQC Jewels.
We were the Chamber.
Credit all public places, so equality runs the show.
Then the partnership.
HB2, or you can go where you want to go.
Now the
Sure,
Alliance.
the PPLOs are all deductible.
We're all together.
Affordable housing goes, all this and so much more.
Alliance. We're out of here.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. And now, we'll take the applause whether it's get off the stage or you did a great job. Now that you have had a sumptuous feast for your ears, it's probably time for a palate cleanser. Everybody enjoy lunch. Thank you very much for entertaining us. Thank you.
Please welcome back to the stage Janet Labar.
All right. Thank you so much again for being here today. You know, at this time of year, Most of us are feeling the crunch to squeeze everything in, and the fact that you're spending a couple of hours in this room just affirms who we are as a community. We show up, we care, we value each other. People and community are synonymous, and we're always going to put the work in to lift each other up. This is who we are. When my peers across the country ask, how are we tackling issues that are affecting business, like economic mobility, racial equity, market sustainability, I'm so proud to start with the fact that we're all in. We come together because we inherently value working alongside one another, and more importantly, we believe that the outcomes will be better because we're all in. This behavior, this value, it's in our DNA. We have a long and tremendous history of coming together for the betterment of this community. We saw it in the opening video. Tim and Matt rocked it out through song. Malcolm and Keith are going to come on stage and touch on it some more. And of course, our Citizen of the Carolinas honoree, Michael Marsicano. I'm sure he's probably going to mention a thing or two about what this community has achieved by doing it together. Throughout our history, this region, marked by strong business leadership, has championed transportation connectivity, expansion of the airport, our airport friends are here, civil rights reform and integration, and development of a city center anchored by vibrant arts, sports, and entertainment. Working together to create and champion and invest in the fundamentals has been key to the region's success today. Think about it. The quality of life that we enjoy here, it is not an accident. This was years in the making, and maybe it hasn't been perfect, but we are well on our way. Business leaders, elected officials, community organizations, citizens who vote on these investments. Economic development is a team sport, as y'all know I like to say. And what we've created has attracted investment from global companies, fortune companies, startup companies, and companies of all shapes and sizes in between. These companies, in turn, have attracted talent, they've hired talent, they've developed talent, and our community, once again, benefits from new ideas, more energy, and from a broader population who care about Charlotte. More recently, the business community has leaned in on housing, education, workforce development, equity and inclusion, transportation and mobility, and entrepreneurship. Again, backed by the want and the willingness that together we can make a difference for our community and for our neighbors and for our future generations. As the voice of business and only regional economic development outfit serving the Charlotte region, I gotta tell you, the Alliance, we revel in convening and the responsibility that comes with that. As our market grows, we proudly carry the torch to bring new and familiar business leaders together to fan and fuel the flame. I have a lot of F's in there, I like alliteration. Of civic engagement and cultivate complete care of our community. But inside the halls of the Alliance, my incredible teammates and I, we focus on growing the economy and advocating for business. We are dedicated professionals and practitioners who are experts in generating interest and exercising influence to grow business and a business-friendly environment. We spend our days selling, consistently and persistently working to champion the Charlotte region to decision makers and policy makers, because that's what we do. But it's what we do with you, for you, and in service to you in our community. That, for us, is the extra. Convening diverse stakeholders to talk about the pain points of growth or pursue those moonshot opportunities for the region. That is special for us. Our work at the Alliance is purposeful. We know the business community can make a difference, and it's our collective hustle that sets us apart, and it's also what's going to keep us together. So thank you for your continued commitment to the Alliance and to the Charlotte region. We're going to hear now from Jean Woods, check this out, CEO of Advocate Health, one of our newest headquarters to the region. And we all know that Jean certainly believes in the power of coming together to better the community.
For anybody that's lived in Charlotte, people have got the spirit of we can do this and we will do this working together. There's a true spirit of a partnership between businesses, health systems, and also the government. And I think that's really going to propel us going forward in this new world. The Innovation District here in Charlotte will really define this region in new ways. We came together with Wake Forest University and Wake Forest Baptist Medical Center. It'll have a medical school on the campus surrounded by essentially these businesses and these laboratories that are discovering new cures. We have scientists, we'll have clinicians, we'll have other health professions on that campus, and we'll have other professional studies. One thing I will say about the business leaders in Charlotte, they have tremendous civic commitment and energy. We're talking about things like how are we going to deal with pre-K education? How are we going to create economic mobility? How are we going to reach the most vulnerable communities? How are we going to create job progression? All of that. We are committed to making this the best community to live in. When I talk to my colleagues in the major cities, they know there's something special here in Charlotte.
Well said. This year, I've had the great pleasure to work with Malcolm Coley. He is a constant motivator, a fierce advocate of the Charlotte region, and he is the ultimate protagonist in my book. So please help me welcome to the stage my mentor and my friend and your chair, Malcolm Coley.
Well, Janet, first of all, thank you, everyone. And Janet, you are truly a great leader. You work hard, you never shy away from challenges, and you continue to demonstrate your commitment to this region. And for all of that, we are grateful for you. I can stand here today and say with a high degree of confidence that I am proud to be a part of this organization. And I'm proud of the work that we have accomplished together this year. As the voice of businesses, the Charlotte Regional Business Alliance is at the intersection of many of the important and impactful things that are happening in our community. In the last 2 years, we've remained focused on our 3 strategies. 1, economic revitalization through business growth. 2, driving racial equity in our business community. And 3, building a coalition for a better 2050. These strategies have guided our work, and we remain committed to meeting and exceeding the standards that we have set for ourselves and that you expect from us. We've grown the economy, advocated for businesses, and convened diverse stakeholders to shape a more vibrant and prosperous region. And that's why we exist, and it's the difference that the Alliance brings. First, we are accelerating the entire region, and we are doing it through market awareness and business investments with our local partners across the Charlotte region. The Alliance is the only organization that generates leads that results in tangible investments in every corner of our community. The new select CLT team created next generation economic development strategies in which the team has identified 132 investments in our region in less than 6 months, and including a win we just shared last week announcing a leading food manufacturer, Pasta Pedersini, is located in its headquarters in Catawba County. And also, we are proud to have taken a leadership role in the site selection process that led to the ACC joining Charlotte and calling it home. We're glad to have Commissioner Jim Phillips and the ACC team with us today. Thank you. We've celebrated the region's impressive economic development wins. Altogether, more than 6,600 jobs have been announced, with a total capital investment of nearly $3.8 billion. Companies like Microsoft, Macy's, Eli Lilly, Besco, and Sherwin-Williams are welcoming new and expanded additions to this community we all love. With our strategy, geographic location, low cost of living, and our strong talent base, the Charlotte region is the best place in this country to start, grow, and expand our businesses. And it's a great place to work and play as well. Earlier this year, and with encouragement and input from many of you in the room, we piloted a talent attraction campaign to support talent demand in the region. More than 50 employers in our region participated in this campaign, and we generated over 5.8 million impressions from our targeted audience of mid-career professionals from the Northeast. On the advocacy side, we've exercised the voice of businesses from Columbia to Raleigh to Washington to influence and inform economic and social policies and champion the highest quality of life for all of those who call our region home. We have had 4 legislative successes in both North and South Carolina this year, including tax reform in South Carolina, sales tax reallocation for transportation tax in North Carolina, and then broadband funding in both states. We will build on those successes and continue to move the needle on policies in 2023. One important step we took was around the Medicaid expansion, advocating for a policy that would close the health insurance gap for 600,000 North Carolinians. We understand that a healthy workforce must have options for affordable health care, and that access to affordable health care is critical to our region economy. But we also understand true health and prosperity of a community is only possible when there's opportunities for all, which is why we took a leadership role in the Mayor's Racial Equity Initiative. Mayor Lyles is with us today. Thank you for your big and bold ideas in making our community much better. We will support the widespread commitment of business to address racial equity in the workplace, and we'll work and finalize our action plans. A lot of places talk about public-private partnership, but this community is walking the walk and doing the work. And there is nothing like it anywhere else in the country. So I am excited about all of the things that we've accomplished this year, but we're not stopping here. We have a much more to do in 2023 and beyond, and the future looks bright. If you need more proof, just look at the impact Eli Lilly is making in our community.
Lilly is always doing as best as possible, impacting positively the communities where we are. We have initiatives like the Lilly Day of Service, where 1 day per year in 63 different countries, the Lilly employees get out to the community to try to create a positive impact. Racial Justice Commitment is a program that was launched in 2020, by which Lilly committed to provide 25 million over 5 years to support this cause. We have been able to make significant progress in terms of working with Black vendors and suppliers, and also we have had a significant progress in hiring people from minorities that would be underrepresented. We are defining our operations in a way that we not only reduce or recycle, but we eliminate waste, and we do it as lean as possible. We will be installing solar panels to supply 15% of the electricity needed for the site. Lilly decided to locate a new site here in the Charlotte area because of the capable workforce, the STEM educational institutions that are present in the area, the transportation infrastructure that we have access to from here. There is a natural way of working and collaborating that is outstanding, that we have not seen in other places. So it has been fantastic and a great journey.
So it's been an honor to serve as your chair, and I'd also like to recognize the incredible leadership of our board, So if you're a board member, if you don't mind, please stand to be recognized. And now, it is truly an honor to pass the torch to my good friend and colleague, the president of Bank of America Charlotte and head of sports sponsorship, Keith Cockrell.
Malcolm, thank you. What a great leader we have in Malcolm, a great year that he led for us. Malcolm is a great friend. And it's been through your partnership, Malcolm, your leadership, and this commitment that continues to inspire me. On behalf of Janet, the Charlotte Alliance, and frankly, everyone in this room, Malcolm, we want to say thank you. Thank you for all that you have accomplished, your dedication to not only this organization, but really for your continued dedication to the community. You're still so very actively engaged. He kind of tells everybody that he couldn't wait for this day to pass the torch, so to speak, but we know you're going to still be very, very active. You know I'm going to keep calling you. So as incoming chair, it's without question. I'm very thankful for Malcolm, for Carol Lovin, who have been incredible mentors for me over the last 2 years, quite candidly, to try to get me ready for this. We have a proud legacy of leadership in the Charlotte community, of business leadership. You've heard about some of our elected officials here, but the legendary leaders that have helped really mold and shape this city. You see, they've had the audacity to dream that Charlotte could be socially and economically transformational, not only for this region, but really for our country. Across our community and within the Charlotte Alliance, we have been blessed with many great leaders over the years. I'd be remiss if I didn't pause to say thank you to such leaders as Kathy Besant, who led this organization, Andrea Smith, Mac Everett, Fred Whitfield, Jesse Curitan, who have always been rock solidly behind me, and really the entire board and executive committee of the Charlotte Alliance. So thank you. I'm going to be calling on you for your help. So thank you for all the leadership that you've provided to our community. We value and appreciate our heritage, and we'll continue this legacy of leadership and innovation as we look to continue to grow. Like those who have paved the way, we're committed to creating opportunities so our region will continue to prosper. So how will we do that? Well, we'll continue to build on this concept that's behind me. We'll continue to advocate. We'll continue this focus on growth by continuing to expand our partnerships. Whether it's private, public, big businesses or small businesses, nonprofits or elected officials, from our perspective, it does not matter. It is what makes us special here in Charlotte. We'll listen to all voices will be heard, and we'll continue to focus on building a strong infrastructure that continues to support this dynamic city and the region, where workforce development, education, transportation, and continued access to health care to provide a sustainable economic growth model will maintain the pillars for our growth and our pathway forward. Now, we plan to continue to incite all of you in this room for the businesses that you represent. We'll build new relationships and leverage the strong partnerships as we collaborate to tackle the issues that are currently in front of us and the challenges that may lie ahead. Because, as Janet mentioned, that's what we do. We may not always agree, but we will always have the best intentions of Charlotte and this region in mind. Our commitment to the region is unwavering, and we will continue to focus on sustainable growth. It's imperative that we all take this charge to work together across our states. But what about small business, the innovators, the entrepreneurs. We have many of those too, not just the big name brand companies that represent us. So in 2023, we'll turn more intentional focus on supporting small business growth and innovation and workforce development and preparing those next leaders, business leaders of our community. Small businesses are a fundamental economic engine in our region. With growth comes challenges and opportunities, and we must ensure that we have the skills that are required today, but also those that are required in the future. And I'm equally excited about our work that's rolling across this region in healthcare. You heard from Jean earlier, but if I can just give just a little bit more detail, we continue to support not only Bank of America, but Dina, I couldn't be more proud of the support that we received from the county in working with CMS and Atrium and Central Piedmont to implement the signature program that Atrium calls Meaningful Medicine. It's a program designed to offer equal access to healthcare for students and staff in Tier 1 schools, as well as support those that are in need of mental wellness. But beyond just providing healthcare, we're giving them pathways to careers desperately in need and demanded by the healthcare industry. In addition to small business and education, we'll galvanize around our support for transportation. We'll lean in and we'll continue the dialogue to challenge the status quo and drive the need for change, because we know we're growing. We don't need to experience another accident to realize how difficult it is to get to Center City and how much time it takes for all of us. To live a quality life, we need transportation options. These are just a few of the examples where we'll leverage the partnerships and we'll depend on the knowledge and the expertise in this room and across this community to not just support the initiatives, but quite frankly, to really jump in, to help drive and create further impact to secure our success. This city and this region are proof that greatness is possible. But greatness requires a holistic approach. And it's our people, in my opinion, that really sets this region apart. That gives me the confidence and the courage to step into this opportunity this year. Because I know through the friendships and the partnerships and the relationships and the collaborations that we've already established, that we'll be able to maintain this legacy of leadership. I see a bright future for Charlotte in this region. We stand on the shoulders of all those legendary leaders that we're so very, very proud of. Those who dared to break the ceiling, challenge the rules, create new laws to help create this region that we know today. It's their legacy of leadership and their desire to continuously strengthen, expand our foundation that we will carry on. And speaking of legacies, there aren't enough words to describe the impact of one particular leader has made in this community, not only at my company at Bank of America, but really across the city and for that matter, across the nation. He's been a visionary. I just don't have the words to explain. He's a man of many firsts, a champion of change, a driver of economic impact, a mentor to so many of us in this room, and still carries on to this day. How about if we hear a few words from Mr. Hugh McCall?
If you want to attract talent from other cities, and I did when I was building this company, trying to bring people from San Francisco or New York or Chicago or London or Paris, you need it to be an interesting city. So business should be involved in making it a city that's fun to live in, great to raise a family in, and great to work in. What I hope for Charlotte is that we continue to grow, but that we grow in a way that we can manage, that as we continue to build parks and we need to support our school system, we need to make it a place that's good for everybody to live. And so we really need to work on affordable housing. And I think if you look back, you'll see that Bank of America has participated financially as well as with its people in almost every good thing that's happened in the Center City. It's sort of what you do in Charlotte if you run a business. You look after your city, and you look after the people that work for you and with you, and your customers, and all the people we wish were our customers. So it's just the right thing to do.
To reiterate, Mr. McCall, we will continue to make this region not just a desirable region from a business perspective, but a place you want to work, a place where you want to play. Allie and I are committed as we take on this new opportunity with the Alliance to ensure that we all feel confident that we can raise our children and feel great to call this Charlotte region home. So I invite all of you to join us. We know we got a good thing here. The opportunity for us is to continue to work together, collaborate together to make it even better. And as we enter 2023, I look forward to honoring our legacy while standing with each of you as we continue to build for our future. Thank you.
Hug you.
Of course.
Great job. Thank you. Thank you, Keith. Your enthusiasm for this work is both contagious and so inspiring. We have an exciting year ahead, and we are ready to follow your lead as 2023 chair. And now, for a conversation you won't hear anywhere else, the Alliance is pleased to convene on this stage 3 of the most influential CEOs in the country. Chairman and CEO of Honeywell, Darius Adamczyk, Chairman and CEO of Lowe's companies, Marvin Ellison, and Chair of the Board and CEO of Bank of America, Brian Moynihan, and joining to moderate our executive conversation, Chancellor of UNC Charlotte, Dr. Sharon L. Gaber. Let's give it up.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. We're grateful to be here for the annual Outlook and the CEO conversation. As you just heard with us are CEOs from 3 Charlotte-based Fortune 100 companies, and I know that each of them will offer us a strong, unique perspective as we take a look at some of the trends that occurred in 2022, and we look ahead with a few predictions on what to expect here in Charlotte and across the country for 2023. So we'll start, Darius, with you. Let's look back over the past year. What would you say has been the biggest lesson for the economy that we've learned?
Well, first of all, great to be here again and be part of the group, and great to see everybody in 3 dimensions rather than 2. That's always a welcome thing. But I think, kind of a bit tongue-in-cheek, but I'm just kind of looking for a normal year. I really am. We haven't had one since 2019, and it seems like it's just one crisis after another. I think, from this year, 2022, I mean, certainly inflation is something that's been a headline for us and managing through that. And I think that for a lot of businesses, it is different. This is not something that we've had to worry that much about for a couple, at least 3-4 decades. And frankly, our management teams had to learn a new set of skills, a new set of processes that we've never done before. So I would say that was really one of the core areas of focus for us. Probably another one was, just being able to secure labor. I mean, we've had issues, and some of our suppliers had a lot of issues to supply labor, which has frankly been a contributing factor to a lot of supply chain challenges that probably all of us in this room have experienced. We certainly have. So I would say that's been a couple of lessons learned, and trying to get a bit in front of that for 23 and going forward is an opportunity and a challenge at the same time. But those were, You know, we've certainly learned a new skill set around inflation management that we haven't had in a long time.
Thank you. Brian, any lessons from the past year you'd like to add?
Well, I think we were sitting here last term. First, it's great to be here again and share the stage with my colleagues. But it's just it's fun. Look forward to this every year. But if you were sitting here last year, I think we were sort of still engaged in debate about transitory inflation, and many of us said, with this kind of labor tightness, with this kind of supply chain disruption, with this kind of ability to push price through, it wasn't temporary, or it wasn't whatever word, transitory, and it took a while for the Fed to catch up. Obviously the lesson I think learned is the importance of resiliency and supply chains and capabilities, and no one's learned that lesson more than the country of Germany with their energy supply chain and too dependent on a single manufacturer. But I think that lesson applies to all our businesses, is you've got to make sure that no matter what happens, you can keep doing what you're supposed to do. Maybe a little more expensive, may take a little more time, but in the rush for the decades of efficiency and purchasing things, a lot of companies, including ourselves, got too narrowly supplied by one source. And so I think we learn those lessons again. We learned them back in the pandemic when we were running around trying to get masks and all that stuff. We learned them again about energy sources, and we learned about other stuff. So I think I think that it's been a good year from recovery of a lot of the things to sort of moving towards normalization. But with this new issue of inflation and the Fed's need to shut that down, it is a different year and makes predicting the future hard.
Well, thank you. So Marvin, I'm going to take that and twist it a little bit and ask if you can talk a little bit about current customer activity, client perspectives. What does it tell you about the current state of the economy?
Well, thank you. I think what's interesting, we have stores in all 50 states, so we have a pretty good view of the U.S. business, and we're fortunate, and I say fortunate in this macro environment, to be a U.S.-based business. I know, Darius, you're a global business, and you're dealing with factors in Europe and Asia. We source around the world, but our revenue is driven primarily in the U.S. And I think the most interesting thing is, as difficult as the economy has been from an interest rate and inflation perspective, what's different about this environment versus other, what I call economic shocks that we saw back during the financial crisis, is that different businesses are being impacted differently, and different industries are having different impacts. We're in the home improvement business, and I spend most of my time trying to educate the investment community between the difference between home building and home improvement. And I'm still at it, because I still don't think they understand the difference between the two. And so is it a difference? And it's really driven by two things. If you're in home building, your demand is driven by affordability. And if you're in home improvement, your demand is driven by appreciation. In other words, the more your home is worth and valued, the more confidence you have in investing in that home. And when people ask me, how do you determine whether or not your business is in a recessionary environment? So it's really simple. When you replace your countertop, is it an investment or an expense? How you define it tells me whether or not we're in a recessionary environment for home improvement. Because if it's an investment, you're thinking, hey, this is going to cost me a lot of money, but I'm going to get all that back when I sell this house. Or you're saying, woe is me, man, I'm going to be ready to sink some costs in this and I'll never get it back. And so for us, we're fortunate that because the average value of the U.S. home has increased $330,000 since the beginning of the pandemic, most of us still see our homes as a valued asset. So our business is still rather robust, where because of interest rates and other factors, home affordability has become such that you're opting to stay in your existing home versus buying a new one. And I'll give you another really interesting data point. In the U.S., 90% of the homeowners either have a low fixed mortgage rate or the home is paid for. And so even though interest rates are debilitating, from a macro perspective, if you have your house paid for or you're locked into a low fixed rate, which hopefully you got from Bank of America, for Brian and Keith.
He's learning.
Then you're kind of immune to all the factors driven by the Fed. So I think for me, we try to go out and educate the environment on, yes, this is a tough macro environment. Yes, there are factors around the globe that will have impact on demand and our ability to source by and the global supply chain. But in this space, we're very fortunate that our retail sector still has a little bit of a tailwind.
Thank you. Darius, anything on customer activity in Honeywell that you want to touch on?
Yeah, I mean, this is a great cross-section of CEOs because Marvin has a great view of B2C business. Obviously, Brian has a great view of the banking, finance. For us, we're purely a B2B business. So from that perspective, and I think the U.S. market continues to stay resilient. So we're seeing sort of similar areas to what Marvin talked about, that the U.S. overall is still staying strong. We see couple of soft spots, particularly in segments that are tied to e-commerce. For example, we have a warehouse automation business, and what happened the year 2020, 2021, there was a expedited need to build out warehouse automation capacity, because people primarily bought things online. And there was a great need to expand. Well, what happened was that probably there was an overbuild that happened, so some of that capacity has to now get consumed. That segment's been slow. Now, if you look at the other extreme and you look at aerospace, which is our biggest business, that's been on fire. I mean, it continues to be on fire because consumer came back much faster than anybody would have anticipated. As a matter of fact, flight hours are now ahead in 22 of what they were in 2019. And if you went back and listened to a lot of the so-called experts in 2020 and said, well, travel for consumers not coming back till 25, 26. Well, the fact is, it actually came back a lot sooner than people expected. Business still is not what it was, so that's still kind of on its way back. So we see the full spectrum, but I would tell you that Europe now got a little bit of a different perspective. Europe is much softer, and I think what Europe is facing that's a big challenge is just the energy costs and energy prices, which is really eating into people's dispensable income. And in the Ukraine-Russia conflict has really created a new crisis for them. And although from an energy perspective, Europe's going to be okay for this winter just because they got ahead of things and have enough gas and storage, the new concern is really around 23 winter. And is there going to be enough gas and other fuels available to really power Europe in the future? So we're kind of seeing a fairly broad set of markets, some doing extraordinarily well from a geographic like the US, and others being soft. But overall, our calculus for 23 is that it's going to be a tougher year economically than 22. That, we're fairly certain of that.
Thank you. So Brian, you spoke just a minute ago about inflation. What can be done to counter rising inflation, the high cost of living, and the cost of doing business?
We got 35 minutes left.
In 35 minutes or less, all right?
So, but let's going back to, the team at Bank of America has the first 3 quarters of next year slightly negative 1%, say, sort of annualized GDP, and then it comes back positive. And if you step back and think about where they were, say, this time the year before, they would have had, something's going to go wrong here as inflation kicks up, the Fed has to slow it down. And that, just keeps getting pushed out. And so what's the common link between what Darius said and what Marvin said is the U.S. consumers. What makes us U.S. stronger is we have an unemployment level of 3.6, 3.7%. We have wage growth that's strong. A big debate you saw today, real wage growth 1 year, but if you actually go back 2 or 3 years, it far exceeds inflation. The purchase power of consumers is stronger. You have people employed, they're getting paid more. You have that engine, which is the size of the Chinese economy, to give you a sense, is just relentless. And so is it slowing down on what it's purchasing? Yeah, but that engine now is fueled by employed, getting paid more, have multiples of the money in their accounts because of the stimulus and the over-stimulus that was put into them. But we're starting to see them deplete a little bit. We're starting to see it get a little bit different. And most businesses, as Marvin said, are planning for a little bit more worried that they're going to have to deal with a negative growth in next year. And so they're being a little more conservative. Even line usage is flattening out. But overall, you're saying that's a pretty good place to be on a relative basis. So we have the U.S. Sort of flattish growth next year and kicking back to sort of 1% and then moving on from there. But we have the world only growing at 2%, which is usually like a 3.5% growth rate, largely because of Europe and China slowing down. But it's not the worst place to be. And so now the Fed has to choke off inflation. They really have raised rates to a level that the debate is how high they go. But I think if you listen to what they said last week, this is the key, is how long they'll have to hold them there to ensure inflation's gone. So the idea of whether they go to 5% on terminal rate or 4.75 or 5.25, those are small differences on a 5% base. The issue is if they have to hold it there a couple of years, you effectively have an inverted yield curve for a couple of years, which would be a very unusual outcome. But they're really only fighting with one thing, which is interest rates to slow down this dynamic, and they're fighting against a consumer that knows how to spend 5% more in the first couple weeks, first week of December versus last year, or 6% more, 5% in November, 3% during the Thanksgiving sort of Cyber Monday over last year, which was up 27% for the year before. They're fighting against that consumer employed, earning, and spending, and that drives business, which is the domestic part of the economy. They're fighting against that with one arm, one thing in their quiver, which is to raise rates, which the job is to destroy the feeling of wealth, markets down, housing less affordable. Maybe that'll slow the consumer down. It just hasn't yet. And so that's kind of the tug of war that will go on. So the way to do it is the Fed has to raise rates. They have to see real economic activity tip over. You're starting to see a little bit of that. That's what you saw today with inflation. They have to hold it there. And I think the surprise in the markets will be how long they have to hold it there to get it under control. And if they don't get it under control, it's an insidious thing. So it's a pretty straightforward equation. It's just, as Darius said, there's nobody under the age of 40 that's worked in business with a real interest rate environment, honestly, except for we got it back up to 2.5%, the Fed funds rate in 2019. You got to go back to 2007 in the financial crisis, so add 22 plus that many years and start to think about anybody's story. And if you go back to doing something like this, you got to go back to the late 80s and 90s or 70s, depending on how you want to look at it. So it's just this is going to cause people to ebb and flow. But the rumors of America having a demise are widely over exaggerated, and so now people who predicted this is what would happen are backing off that. That still doesn't mean it's going to be bumpy. It'll be bumpy next year.
Right, thank you. I'm going to shift just a little bit and talk about workplace trends. And we've seen, obviously, over the past few years, shifts and debates over where we work, how we work. We've seen the Great Resignation occurring. So, Darius, I'm going to start with you. What workplace trends from the past year or two do you see carrying into 2023? And I'd ask you maybe think a little bit about the Charlotte market, what you're seeing with Honeywell, and then obviously you can talk about nationally or globally.
Well, let me start with the Charlotte market. Charlotte's market's been terrific to us. It's, we've relocated a headquarters here in 2019, right before the pandemic, but it was, said this before, I'll say it again, it's one of the best decisions that, frankly, we ever made. So it's been a real pleasure to be here and the kind of, community that we are a part of. So it's been a thrill, and I think every Honeywell person is thrilled to be part of this community. In terms of, in terms of the trends, I think, I think the pendulum is kind of swinging all over the place, right? I mean, we were, in 2020, all of us sounded the alarm bells, and I remember that day vividly, and we're still downtown here, and there was a rumor of somebody, this was early on in March of 2020, and there was a rumor of somebody's not coughing, and like instantly, I literally sent everybody home, and they never came back for months and months and months, because we just wanted to make sure everybody was safe. And we have to remember, in March of 2020, I mean, we really didn't understand this disease. I mean, this virus, we really didn't know how serious or not serious it is. And, you know, we did what we had to, which is to protect our employees. And then we made, and, you know, that includes all of our associates in manufacturing, which frankly didn't have the luxury to work from home. So then, you know, we had to also swing into action. We got into manufacturing of masks and safety gears and enable those people that really don't have the ability to work from home. And sometimes we forget about that group. And that group are the people that really enable us to get through this very difficult period. But, you know, where do we go from here? I think that we've been on this full work remote. You know, what we're doing at Honeywell is we're, I think, similar to Brian and it's somewhat similar, I think, to Marvin too, which is, you know, we're kind of doing this hybrid 3-2 work structure. I do think that it's important for employees to spend some time with each other to create a network. I worry about some of our early career employees, that they get the proper coaching and leadership and some of the informal stuff that you just don't really appreciate. I mean, you know, could you do that over Teams or Zoom? I guess you can, but it's not the same saying, oh, hey, I just want to give you a tip about something, so let me make an appointment with you on Zoom and do that. I mean, it's just really not as likely to happen. So I think we're trying to figure out what the right balance is. You know, we think that having people in the office at least 3 days a week is reasonable. We want to maintain some level of flexibility, but we also want to get back to some level of being collegial and embracing all of our early career employees, creating networks. Because, I mean, I don't know, I can't speak for everybody. For me, big reason I come to work is with the people I work with, because I really love working with them. And if I just see them on TV, that's a bit different. And that's kind of how we're thinking about it. But I'm not sure we're fully ready to declare, like, we're going to be remote, we're going to be full-time. I think we're evolving. That's kind of how I'd put it.
Thank you. So Marvin, Lowe's opened its new tech hub earlier this year, and this is a great addition to South End. I enjoyed having the opportunity to see it, so thank you. How do you see this new space creating innovation and collaboration during a time of shifting workplace dynamics?
You know, look, I want to thank Mara Lyles and her team. They played a huge role in the ability to build this magnificent facility. We worked with the governor's office, and we had this great vision of, you know, creating this tech epicenter here, you know, in the south end of Charlotte, that's so very convenient for people to work, to live, to play, you know, access to public transportation. Because for me, it was really challenging to recruit world-class tech talent and get them to migrate to Morrisville. A lot of great things about Morrisville, but it's not a beacon for tech talent. So we have this vision of creating this world-class environment where we can gather the best technology minds in the world to work collaboratively, and the pandemic happens. And when the pandemic happens, the world goes remote. To Darius' point, all of us lived through it. So then the question becomes, how do you leverage this facility for collaboration, for workspace, for all the modern things we put in place so that we can become a true technology company? And because of the work by my Chief Information Officer, Samantha Gaber, and so many others, we've still been able to attract world-class talent. As a matter of fact, we've hired 2,000 technology leaders to work for Lowe's within the 4 years that I've been here. And we've taken our technology development to 80% packaged software, 80% third party, to 80% internally developed. It does a couple of things for us. Number one, it minimizes what we pay for licensing fees dramatically because everything's proprietary. And also it gives us the ability to make agile adjustments quickly, you know, as the world changes. You know, to Darius' point, you know, e-commerce, as we all know, has become a very, very affordable and very convenient way for us to shop. And for many people who never even considered e-commerce as something that they would lean into when the pandemic hit, everyone became proficient in e-commerce. And so for a company like Lowe's, who was way behind other brick and mortar retailers, you know, my vision was really simple. The winners in retail will be the companies that can marry digital and physical stores together. Because it doesn't matter what a pure play e-commerce company can deliver. I have 1,720 plus stores in the US. You don't have 1,700 warehouses. And so I have the ability not only to deliver from fulfillment centers via e-commerce, but I have the ability to fulfill from 1,700 stores and give you things within an hour or two when that's very difficult for another pure play to do. So this technology center in the South End has enabled us to recruit talent that can make all these things happen. And again, when I started with Lowe's, the only headline that I remember seeing about our technology was in 2018 when our online system crashed on Black Friday. And that made the papers, but not for the right reasons. And so now we transition to being in the Wall Street Journal for the development of something called digital twin, which is the ability for associates to put on goggles, stand in front of a shelf in the store, and we can show them exactly what it's going to look like when it's fully set. Or for them to stand in front of any part of the store, and we can show them, from the tech center exactly what the finished product will look like. And that was primarily developed in the South End by our tech team. So we're on an evolution. We're not where we would like to be, but we have now the infrastructure with that location and the ability to attract talent that now we're on a trajectory that I think is going to separate us from other retailers.
Thank you. So, Brian, sticking with workplace trends, what do you and Bank of America see as carrying into the new year?
In terms of how we work, or?
Yeah, work, or issues, or anything. Yeah.
Well, I think, like Darius said, I think we're all still learning about the right way to do this. So we've made some policies. We did a survey, 180,000 people, sort of asked them a bunch of questions to ferret out what they thought, what they wanted, and we ended up applying that across 200-some thousand people, a set of principles, so you end up with 200 different thousand work rules. And he said, well, that's going to be a little hard to manage, so let's sort them up. And then we came up with sort of buckets of people's jobs, and then teammates in them, and made a set of rules. And we'll see how that plays out over time in terms of, these aren't permanent decisions. Decisions would meet it, but I think the issues we are focused on is how do you make sure it's fair across the board? How do you make sure that junior teammates get the mentoring and the collegiality, and how do you have the culture? And so when we sort of got back to here's the rules, we said we did free meals in the cafeterias for basically October, November, and into late November. And the theory there was not about trying to coax people back to work because we knew where we were on that. It was more to get people to feel the community of work. Yeah. And when we saw 3-, 4-, 5-fold use of the cafeterias, but the people had to see each other and they talked to each other. And what the notes I got back, part were thank you for the free lunch on us. The big notes I got back were, wow, it was great to see people and interact with them. And that's a piece that I think we forget. So I've worked with my management team. A lot of them work with me or for me. For 20-some years, I don't really have to even see their face on Zoom to be able to engage with them because I know the tone of their voice, I know them well. But now put yourself, and what I always say to managers, imagine the first 3 years of your career if you never met your boss face to face. That is the experience of a person that came out of college in 2019, 2020. They might have met him for 6 months, and then they never met him. And think about that. Would you be who you are today? And that's what Darius was talking about. So we're going to work our way through it. We'll see how it happens.
Thank you. So now let's shift a little bit and talk a little bit about the role of business in our communities. So in Charlotte and nationally, there are great issues that we're working to address. So things like housing affordability, racial equity, even climate change. As corporate leaders, what role should the business community play in addressing these? Brian, I'll start with you, and maybe you can talk about some specific examples, but I'll give you each an opportunity to address.
Sure. So I think philosophically, we run the company to deliver on profits and purpose, and that's not a new concept. Jim Collins wrote about it in the 90s, and it's a genius of the and, he calls it, not or. And so, for a financial institution, a bank, you came out of the communities you represented. So all these banks that we have that have all these little rivers that have come together to be this big river, are all the bank in their town that lent money to help form, have capital form, et cetera. And so, those are things. So, at the end of the day, it's your customers, your teammates, your shareholders, and your communities. So that is, people call it stakeholder capitalism. I just say it's capitalism done right if we can get business to solve the issues for all those people. But the real point, and the World Council thing, I think last year, earlier the year, I gave a little speech on this question. The real point is, business is the only way to solve this. The federal budget of the United States is about $4 trillion in operating budget. Guess what? They lose $1 trillion plus. If they were running a business like any of us or any of you, they'd be out in 6 months. Yeah, okay. So the question is, so they can't do it. And then you go to charity, which is wonderful, and charities, $1 trillion plus a year worldwide, $800 billion in the US. The US is much better at charity than the rest of the world. That's not going to help a lot. It's going to be wonderful, great spirit, but at the end of the day, it's not enough money. And then you go to all the foundations, endowments, including Michael and is leaving us as the foundation here that's gone up to tenfold or whatever it is under his leadership. It's all good. Still not enough money to make a difference. It comes from the hundreds of thousands of teammates we have working for us, our capital investments, and how we run our companies, and aligning business to solve those, to get jobs, to help the racial equity and make sure Black Americans get the same opportunities and stuff. It's hiring them into our companies, because you're great companies that take the chance to educate and drive people. And so what we did in the CLSC here in Charlotte, what we've done in other communities, is all about how do we get people into the jobs with big companies like ours. And by the way, when they go to work with some other company after us, they've started from a good base. Our company, you come to work, $45,000 a year, full benefits, $10,000 tuition reimbursement advance, $275 a month for childcare. That's a pretty good starting job. And then if they go somewhere else, they got great training and capabilities. We don't want them to go anywhere else, but they do. So businesses will solve these problems if we aim it right. And so I think no matter what the issue is, it ain't going to be solved without business involvement. And then we as business have to take the mantle of leadership and solve it. And that's where I think this community, since I've been exposed to it for the last 20 years, is just pretty remarkable in that regard.
Thank you. Marvin?
Well, look, I agree a lot with Brian. We talk a lot about the role of a company, and oftentimes you hear something overly simplified as, well, your role is to deliver shareholder value. And as a public company CEO, there's a lot of truth to that, but the question is that an input or is that an output? And I believe it's an output. I think the input is, what are you doing to make the lives of your employees better? Are you creating an environment where customers want to shop, multiple times? The experience is good enough that the first time creates a second time and a third time. And then I think third is, are you making your communities better where your employees live and work? And I believe strongly if companies do those three things consistently, then shareholder value will follow as an output of those things. I think the key part is there a clear vision, from the leaders in the community, the leaders in the local political structure, and one, big initiative, from the mayor is the racial equity initiative that many of the businesses here got aligned around because it was a crystal clear vision of what needed to happen. And so to me, that's a great example of a public-private partnership to have commitments not only just from the city elected officials, but also from the businesses. Because to Brian's point, we have thousands of citizens that live in these communities, that go to the public school systems, and that are part of the fabric of the community. And so it's incumbent upon all of us to ensure that we make the community better, because as we try to recruit high-level executives to come to Charlotte, they're going to look at things like the school system. They're going to look at things like crime. They're going to look at things to determine, is this a place I want to raise my family? And so selfishly, it's incumbent upon all of us as business leaders to do what we can to make this, the best place in the country to live and to raise children. And so we're committed to that. We're committed to supporting, the education system with UNC Charlotte, Queen's University, Johnson C. Smith, and all the like with the digital divide, because we know that the early education is the key to all of it. The three of us on this stage, primarily because, we started out with the foundation of a good education system. And we had somebody to impart on us a vision about what we could do and what we could be. And we collectively have to find ways as a business to do our part to support all the right things that are happening to create a good community. I'm proud to say that our company is doing that, and I know for a fact that Bank of America, Honeywell are equally, strong partners as well, and we plan to continue to do that.
Absolutely. Darius, I don't know if there's anything you wanted to add to that.
No, maybe just kind of a regional comment. I've been fortunate enough. I lived in a number of cities across the country, and I've never seen a better cooperation between public-private partnerships, between businesses working together for the community than I have in Charlotte. I think it's a model that I think many other cities and communities should copy and admire, because I've never seen anything like this. And it's so rewarding for me to be part of this community, to be able to give back. And I think, just like to be repetitive of what Brian Marvin talked about, I think it's the responsibility of a company, public company, to add value to the community. If you're not doing that, I don't think you're serving the community well. You have to do that. I think the toughest thing for us, frankly, is just, you can't do everything. I mean, I think the most frustrating thing for me is which things do we support? Because there's more great things that people are doing in the Charlotte community that we want to support, but we've got to pick and choose, because if you do too many things, you do nothing well. And I think similar to what they talked about, for us, we have a great passion around education, and education that's available to everyone. Everybody has, I think Marvin said it right, which is, everybody really needs access to education. It's the great foundation and the great equalizer. And I think that's an area that we as Honeywell really embrace and support. And but it's been a real privilege to be part of this community and play a role.
Let me just.
Thank you. Brian?
We work a lot, all of us, on the environmental question and getting to just transition and energy. But there is no greater statement about what business is causing to happen. The commitments we all make to Lynn Good to buy clean power allows her to have the purchase commitments to make it happen. So the Inflation Reduction Act will help catalyze some activity. But the reality is, it's in a demand that's multiple trillions of dollars a year, it's like 300, 400 billion. So what's going to cause it is the financing we do to help people do it, or the commitments, or cleaning, changing the emissions practice of the factories, the stores, and all the work that we do. That's what actually changes it over. So a lot of people thinking that you can do this without business. The business has to be the catalyzer. When we make the commitments we all make as companies, and the companies in the room make, that changes the course of history. And that's the hard thing for people to figure out. So yes, we're going to have fossil fuels for a good long time, yes. But are we changing the demand and stuff? And those commitments are far huger than anything else government can do. And that's the role of businesses, to help make things happen on a sustainable basis that makes sense, so the shareholders continue to make money, and therefore you can keep doing it.
Okay, we are in the midst of wrapping up, less than 3 minutes. And what I'd like you to each do is predictions for 2023 on the economy, and particularly, given our audience here, what do you see for Charlotte, the regional economy? So we'll start, Marvin, start with you.
All right, predictions. So look, I'm an eternal optimist with the glass always being half full. So because, and I can speak specifically for my industry, because I wouldn't dare try to provide a broader view or try to project what is bouncing around in Chairman Powell or anyone in the administration's head right now about economic policy. But what I will tell you is, because there are a couple of factors that support housing relative to housing appreciation, as I discussed earlier, we feel very confident that although there will be some form of an economic slowdown, we don't see anything that leads us to believe we're going to have a massive economic shock that will create a massive recession, both locally or anywhere in the U.S. And therefore, we believe that our business trends will remain strong for all the factors. And I'll just leave with one additional data point. relative to my business, one of the key correlating factors to demand is the age of housing stock. In other words, how old are the existing homes in the U.S.? And today, the average age of housing in the U.S. is 41 years old, the oldest since World War II. And that is driven primarily because we never recovered from the financial crisis to get home building back up to the levels it was pre-financial crisis. And so now we have high demand, we have lower supply, and you have higher interest rates, and it all points to the fact that you have less home building and more of us staying in our existing homes, making those homes better. And I think that will bode well for Charlotte from the housing appreciation and for our business. And so that's my view of the economy going into next year.
Thank you. Darius?
Yeah, so overall, on a global level, I think it's going to be a tougher economy in 23 versus 22. We don't, and I think, some of the regions like Europe, I think, are just going to be facing tougher times. When I think about the U.S., I still think it's going to be okay. I don't think it's going to be as good as it was in 22. A couple of the things I look at, which is if you think about roughly 2/3 of our economy is driven by the consumer, and if you look at the saving rates, although they're coming down and have been coming down since 2020, and if you look at sort of the savings, and hopefully I get this right or Brian will correct me, the saving rates, the actual saving accounts are still better off for the average saver now than they were prior in 2019, which tells you that the consumer is still relatively healthy. Now, the fact is, inflation is outpacing wage gains, and Brian talked about this, which is we have to contain inflation. That's a must-do item, and although it's going to be a little painful for Honeywell and maybe all the businesses here, we have to contain it, and I've been very supportive of the interest rate hikes because that has to get brought in control. So in summary, for the U.S., I see a tougher economy, but similar to Marvin, I don't see a meltdown, far from it, in 2023.
Okay,
So
Brian.
So I said earlier, we see a mild recession and a recovery during the year. I think inflation will be the discussion point for all next year as a prediction. I think at the end of the day, if the Fed can engineer what they want, we should feel it's a soft landing and get through it. The risks, we'll still be talking about inflation this time next year. We'll still be talking about potentially a ground war in Europe. We'll still be talking about China-U.S. trade tensions. But what we'll also still be talking about is how America is a better place to be than anywhere else in these times because of the innovation, the capability. And we'll also be talking about how this community will fare better and all that. And it's because of all the things that Marvin and Darius talked about, the cooperation between the government and the business community and the society here is top shelf. And so we're going to have better unemployment, better GDP outcomes. We need to get some housing built. We need to get keep working on schools, all those troubles. But in some ways, there are higher quality problems than anybody else in the world will have. So let's get to work on them.
Excellent. Well, thank you all very much. Thank you for joining us.
And now for the prestigious Citizen of the Carolinas Award. Please welcome to the stage Executive Vice President and CFO of Duke Energy, Brian Savoy.
Good afternoon. It's such a pleasure to be here with all of you today. As we conclude our time together, I'm honored to share the stage with such esteemed business leaders, to recognize this incredible region that we all call home, and to celebrate someone who has truly been a catalyst for positive change in our community. The Citizen of the Carolinas Award acknowledges an individual who has made significant impact in our region. The honoree, through years of accomplishments, has moved the needle to support all who do business here in Charlotte in areas such as civic leadership, public policy, and economic growth. It is the Alliance's most prestigious award. The recipient of this award must make significant contribution to the Charlotte region through his or her commitment to our well-being. They must consistently perform extraordinary acts on behalf of others that truly enhances the quality of life for the members of the community. And they must be committed to racial equity, advocacy efforts, economic growth, and community leadership by contributing time, expertise, and resources for the betterment of the Charlotte region. There aren't many who fit this description, but when you witness these people in action, you know you've seen someone extraordinary. And I think you'll all agree, there's no more deserving recipient for the 2022 Citizen of the Carolinas Award than our own Michael Marsicano. Michael is one who really needs no introduction. You know him as a visionary, but the future he envisions is not his alone. It's a community vision. But few civic leaders are as skilled as he in doing the work that it takes to make that vision a reality. He and his team at the Foundation for the Carolinas are the hub for community imperatives: affordable housing, healthcare, COVID response, arts, recreation, the list goes on and on. I recently heard Michael say he's been privileged throughout his career to see the best in people. The best in public servants, the best in corporations, the best in nonprofits. Well, it's our privilege today to say we see the best in you as well. And we truly appreciate the many gifts you've mobilized for our community that will impact generations to come. Please join me in learning more about Michael and the legacy he leaves with our community as our 2022 Citizen of the Carolinas.
Charlotte community is awfully lucky to have recruited to Charlotte a long time ago an up-and-coming dynamic nonprofit executive from Durham, and we brought him here to be the leader of the Arts and Science Council. And we didn't know that he was going to become an iconic figure.
Michael's presence has been so very important since our city has grown so much over the time that he has been active in how we deal with arts and culture and philanthropy.
Michael's work has benefited the greater Charlotte region in more ways than we really can count, and I think probably in greater ways than we even recognize today. He has been able to see a vision for this region that few people have been able to, and then he's gone after each piece of that vision to put all of the puzzle pieces in place to make this city what it is today.
And he has this unique thing to convene the NGO community, the business community, the government community, the educational community, and say, we got to work on this together. We're going to miss Michael because he's so good at that, and he'll leave a heck of a legacy behind him because he was so good at it.
As mayor of this great city, one of the lessons that I've learned is that nothing is done without a collaborative effort. And to be able to acknowledge that partnerships are important, collaboration builds a better outcome, as well as to actually act on those things, you can see that in Michael's participation.
It's important to have that partnership to move any big initiative. And Michael's depth of experience, his relationships in the public sector, in the private sector, in order to bring all of this together and make a real difference. And Charlotte today is known as a place that can get things done. And I think that's a result of the leadership that Michael and so many have demonstrated, putting public and private partnerships together to move the city forward on big initiatives that'll make a difference for a long time.
The public-private partnerships he's brought together have been tremendous for our community. And I know when I travel to other places, they ask me, how does your community do this? How do you get these people to the table? And while there are lots of people and institutions responsible for that, I don't think we can overlook the role that the foundation under Michael's leadership has played.
I have not yet met a person in Charlotte, whether they were from either rung of the economic ladder, bottom or top, that did not have a great deal of respect for him. And that's saying something, because I've never thought of him as a politician, but he probably was. But you didn't think of him that way. I never thought of him as a person who would twist your elbow to get something done. But he probably twisted my elbow many times, and I didn't realize it until afterwards. This guy knew how to relate.
He is someone that cares deeply that people understand that to participate in a democracy, to participate in community, it doesn't always require that you have a PhD, but it is helpful for a community to have a sound foundational educational system. And Michael has worked on that through LIFT. He's worked on it through the Upward Mobility Study. He's actually worked on it as a parent and a supporter of our children, and that makes a lot of difference. We have a lot to do, but Michael's been a contributor for a very long time to that effort.
Michael is one of the people that when I need to wrestle with an issue in the community, I call Michael. Because Michael not only has great subject matter expertise, he has great history, and he has this can-do attitude on helping you think through what'll be necessary to bring people and resources, stakeholders, funding together to make something happen. He's also not afraid to say this isn't the right time, but he's also anxious to say when it is. And I think that can-do spirit and that experience that he brings, the breadth of his relationships, make him such a valuable member of the community and make it possible for Charlotte to do so many things.
When you ask me if there's anything else to know about Michael, I think it's going to be very challenging for Michael to stop being Michael. So let's see how that goes.
Please join me in welcoming back Malcolm Coley.
So, Michael, I cannot think of a more deserving person than you. A transformative leader and an influential voice in philanthropic whose heart, passion, and commitment are unlike no other person in this region. With plans to retire, I know everyone would miss your larger-than-life presence on a day-to-day basis, but your impact will leave a legacy for generations to come. Just listen to some of the accomplishments since he took over as president and CEO of the foundation in 1999. Philanthropic gifts to the foundation since Michael's arrival have been more than $6.5 billion. $4.6 billion in grants have been issued. And just this year, Michael's final year, gifts into the foundation accounts are projected to exceed approximately $850 million, the highest ever. Also this year, grants to nonprofits are projected to exceed approximately $470 million, also a record. And it's the culmination of his work to help launch the campaign to fund the Mayor's Racial Equity Initiative that aims to make Charlotte the most equitable city in America. Michael is a mastermind of civic leadership and public-private partnership. He has become the Charlotte region thought leader for fundraising campaign and major civic initiatives that have been benefited our friends and neighbors, young and old, and for all walks of life. Michael has worked tirelessly to make this community better throughout his 40-year career of public service. And now it is truly my honor to recognize that public service by naming him the 2022 Citizens of the Carolinas. Michael, please join me on stage. I love you. I love you. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Malcolm, for your kind remarks, your exemplary civic leadership, and most of all, your friendship. Brian, to you and your associates at Duke Energy, I am most grateful for years of robust corporate philanthropy and support of our work. It's really a special honor to be recognized by the generous voices gracing that screen, colleagues, mentors, and heroes in my professional life. And receiving this award at the hands of a trusted colleague in Janet Labar and her prestigious board is really quite extraordinary. Since most of my work has been dependent on partnerships between philanthropists and nonprofit executives, it's really all of their names you lift up today in adding my name to the roster of honorees. And when you hold a CEO position, accolades come your way that rightfully belong to the team you are privileged to direct. Well, since announcing my retirement over a year ago, many have asked what motivated me to service these many years, and the question has prompted months of reflection. Arriving in Charlotte at the age of 32 with unbridled personal ambitions, my first lens on this community was nothing more than trying to make a mark on the way to somewhere else. Exactly where I didn't know, but more on the order of Chicago, San Francisco, or the bright lights of Manhattan. Along the way to the Forum, as they say, I fell in love with Charlotte. Personal ambitions gave way to a collective ambition I would come to share with others, namely the opportunity to help build a great city rather than try to conquer an already great city elsewhere. And then there is our audacity to believe we can build this city even better than those cities we admire. A history lesson on cities suggests that it is roughly a 50-year period during which the personality of a city is baked, after which it is largely unchangeable. Chicago, San Francisco, New York, all baked. Charlotte, on the other hand, is somewhere in its 50-year period of definition. How lucky all of us are to land here in this place, at this time, sharing this historic moment with the rare opportunity to shape a city and a region forever. For me, that opportunity has been exhilarating and more fulfilling than anywhere else I might have pursued my life's work. Even more so, though, because of the relationships developed along the way. Charlotte runs on the currency of reciprocity. If you have a good idea to move us forward, there is someone in a leadership position in this community who will help bring your idea to life. And when we all experience such generosity in spirit and in action, we find ourselves compelled, if not called, to reciprocate. And reciprocity in Charlotte is found on all levels, individual to individual, institution to institution, and sector to sector. This is why public-private partnerships have become a defining feature of Charlotte, like no other city, and I do not declare that casually. Where else can you identify a $250 million campaign for racial equity in a public-private partnership? And above all else, we are a city that appreciates philanthropy and lifts up generosity with gratitude. In her book entitled The Greater Good, Clara Gaudiani maintains most people think Americans are generous because we are rich. And she turns this proposition completely upside down. She asserts the truth is that we in America are rich in significant part because we are generous. And in her book, it's full of examples where philanthropic gifts to nonprofits have in turn shown government the way and even spawned entire for-profit industries generating enormous wealth. Darius talked about aerospace. Did you know, for example, that the airline industry began as a philanthropic undertaking? Indeed, we are richer because we are generous, more prosperous for being more philanthropic. Behold just how generous. In 2021, we Americans are approaching giving upwards of $1 trillion a year, more than the entire GDP of countries like Austria, Thailand, Chile, South Africa, and Norway, to name a few. And here at home, as Malcolm said, by the year end 2022, Foundation for the Carolinas alone will have received $850 million in philanthropic gifts, testimony to the generosity of this region. In fact, one study ranked Charlotte second among 40 cities in giving and volunteering. And the future is even brighter. A golden age of philanthropy is dawning in our lifetime. The pending wealth transfer in America from one generation to the next will be upwards of $59 trillion. And it's estimated that as much as 46%, or 27 trillion, will be gifted to nonprofit organizations. Can you even count the zeros? Your community foundation is poised for the wealth transfer on its way. Now, you knew I would find some place in these remarks to pitch the foundation. After all, I still have 24 days before retirement. So now you have the answer to the question of my commitment to service. We in Charlotte celebrate philanthropy, and we embrace our nonprofit organizations as significant players. Our collective generosity helps to define our city on its 50-year march to greatness. This is our collective Charlotte story, and I wanted to have a role in this historic time. Thank you for the years of that privilege. I will soon relinquish the pulpit of the position that I have held. It's been a blast. I have loved every minute of it, and your recognition suggests that the ingredients I've contributed to the recipe for the city we are baking together has been of some value. For this honor, I am most grateful.
Please welcome back to the stage, Janet Labar.
Congratulations, Michael. There's going to be a receiving line of folks who want to wish you well. You've left a lasting impact on our community and a legacy that none of us will ever forget. Future generations will feel that to come. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day again. We know you all have busy schedules. Please get home safely. Happy holidays, everybody. Thank you.